Welcome back, guys. It's Claire.
Isaac.
And we are in episode 2. So what have we got coming up?
Well, today we got two main topics. We're going to be talking about documentation. And with that, I mean everything, every place that you can find documents regarding the operating system and the switches, data sheets, that type of stuff, as well as where you would find support, where you would create tickets. In other words, everything around how do I get help for my product when I need it. The second part is security. We're going to be talking about...
Oh, security.
We're going to be talking about security. Security is an important part, of every conversation regarding anything to do with IT. So we're going to be covering that in quite a bit of detail. So it's going to be good.
Yeah, and it's good to mention in this one, guys, we're going to have lots of URLs, lots of QR codes. So have your phones at the ready and it will take you to all those parts of the documentation that Isaac's been talking about. Remember, this is on demand as well, so you can pause the episode, use the QR codes then, use them at the end, but it's all here to help you. So yeah, are we ready to go?
We are. Let's go.
Let's go.
See you How do you talk about documentation without talking about documentation? Well, we've decided to call this section Getting to Know Your Switch. When you buy a switch from Extreme, we want to make that customer experience as fantastic as possible. And documentation is one of the keys to that. Now, generally in stuff like this, in episodes like this, they put the documentation right at the back of the queue, almost like it's not important or that important. I think we need to bring this to the front of the queue because people buy these hardware devices, they invest in these hardware devices, and they want to open a box, put it in a rack, and fire it up straight away. Documentation is going to help you to do that. It's going to help you to build, deploy, redeploy, install, configure. This is the purpose of all of the documentation that we're going to be covering in this section. The way we'll do this is we'll just pop up a browser on screen and then we'll go through each one of the sections where you can find the different elements of the documentation. Follow along, there's a lot to learn. There are many ways to get to the documentation. You can just go to extremenetworks.com and then go and look through the menu system and click until you get to what you're looking for. I like shortcuts, right? I like shortcuts. They work very well. And I've discovered a few shortcuts that will get you there really easily. There's probably going to be about 3 or 4 of them that we're going to mention in the section. But if there's one that I want you to remember, a really, really easy one, it's this: documentation.extremenetworks.com. Easy, right? Documentation.extremenetworks.com. That takes you to the whole documentation page. And if you're going to be using Switch Engine on these switches that we're talking about here, then I suggest that the very first document that you have a look at is the document on release note for this version of Switch Engine. So you're going to see on screen as I browse through, the version number of this particular instance is version 32.1. And as you go down and look at the table of contents, you can see the important stuff that is in here. What's new, right? Everybody wants to know what's new. What improvements have you guys done over the previous version? This is the documentation where you find that information. Things that have been fixed, new features, etc. What hardware does this support? What hardware doesn't it support? This is a fundamental document. I suggest the very first one that you read through. It's not one of the long ones. It's actually quite short, but it's worth your while. Make the investment. Documentation.extremenetworks.com and then look for release notes. After you've read the release notes, the next document that I recommend that you get into is the user guide. This is the Switch Engine user guide. When I open this document up on my iPad, it's 2,000 pages long. That's a really big document. Now, will you read all of it? Probably not. But you can see from the table of contents over here that it goes to an incredible level of detail. So you want to know about the OSPF support in Switch Engine? This is the section where you can read up all about it. If you want to know about BGP, click here and you'll see the whole section that opens up on BGP, and so on and so forth. So this document is basically almost a manual that you're going to keep by your side as you work through these switches to extreme switching, especially if you're new to this operating system called Switch Engine. So it is comprehensive. It contains a multitude of data, from the very simple setup all the way to the really complex configuration situations that you're going to need. So this document, unlike the release notes that you will read and close down, this one, just keep it open all the time as a piece of reference material. Now you can access this two ways. You can access this from the web client itself. I personally don't like using the web client. I find it just takes a little bit too long. So you can click on this little button up here, the Acrobat button, and that will download a copy of that user manual to your computer. It's about 17 megs in size. That's my recommendation. Let's move on to the next document. Just like any other switch from any other vendor, we have our own language, Switch Engine, Exos, and it contains hundreds, if not thousands of commands. You're probably not going to use all of these commands over the life of the product, maybe 20 commands or so that you're going to need to learn. And when I'm talking about commands, what I'm talking is about executing the basic tasks on the command line. Now, many engineers prefer to use command line to manage their hardware, to manage their devices. There are other ways to do this as well. You can do this from a GUI, and we will talk about the management of these devices from GUIs later on these episodes. But if you wanted to run commands like, for example, create a VLAN or create a user, this is the command line reference that gives you all of that. And you can see it's listed alphabetically, hundreds of commands, tells you what this command is about. You get a short explanation of all the different switches. You get an example, you get a couple of examples often of the usage of this command in a real world situation. So these are really great. Again, this is not going to be a quick document that you open and close. Just keep it in the background, keep it on hand, because when you need it, this is the document where you find everything you need to do to manage one of these switches from the command line. A lot of our switches come with different connector types. Some of them, like RJ45s, are built into the switches, but the ones that you see mostly on the right are for things like uplinks and for stacking the switches together. They would require different types of cables and connectors. Most of the times, those are just filled in with blanks. And when you purchase a switch, you would make the decision as to which type of connector you want to use. There's a bewildering array. How do you make the right decision? There's single mode, multi-mode fiber. There's fiber that takes you from 1 meter all the way to 40 kilometers. How do you make the choice? We have a page for that, and I found the shortcut really easy. It's optics.extremenetworks.com. And when you get there, this is the page that you actually see. You would start the process by clicking on the top left-hand side of your page. There you would choose the operating system. In this case, this page does not yet reflect Switch Engine. It's still labeled as Exos. The second step would be to determine the distance that you want this fiber optic cable to run. If you want a short run, just take the slider and just push it to the shortest that it will go. Or alternatively, 40 kilometers or more, just take the slider and say, this is my maximum. When you do that, the results will update automatically in this table over here and show you the types of connectors that are valid for this switch or for this operating system that you want. Really easy, really useful. From here, you can make a list of all these SKU numbers, and from there, you can place an order. Here's another page where if you're thinking of building a stack, this will be really useful to you and save you lots of money and time as well. And that is stackingtool.extremenetworks.com. When you get here, if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see a whole lot of switch series listed, like the 5520s and the 5420s. You would click on those and it will show you the switches within that series. You can then just click on the one that you want to stack and you drag it across to the right. and you'll see it opens up and shows you all the stack from 1 to 8. So you can have 8 devices stacked together, a maximum of 8 devices stacked together. If you want to take another one of the series, you just click on it and drag it in. Now, on the 5000 series, you can mix and match some of these, but you can't mix and match any of all of those that appear on the left-hand side. When you do that, on the right-hand side of the middle column, there's a little right arrow. If you click on that, it opens up and shows you more information, more specifications on perhaps other things that you can add onto there. You'll see the little red and the green lights as well. It tells you about compatibility. So this is a really fantastic tool to help you, just like the optic connector page is going to help you to get it right first time before you spend any money on any extra cables or fiber connectors or anything of that sort. Everything we've looked at until now in documentation has been about the operating system, about Switch Engine, Exos, right? The command line, the user guide, etc. But now you've made a decision and you've bought yourself a 5420. Well, how do you do the very basics? Are there any videos that can help you? Yes, they are. Let's go back to that web page that we spoke about earlier, documentation.extremenetworks.com. Previously, we clicked on software and we chose Switch Engine. Now we're going to click on hardware and we're going to go here to routing and switching and we're going to look for the 5420. We click on that and this is what you are presented with. It's there to help the user get started, get off the ground. There's a couple of videos there that will get you started with basic tasks. So let's take a little bit of a look at what all of these options are and how they will help you. The first one is about migrating Ethernet routing to Universal Fabric Engine. So this is what we've spoken about previously on Universal Hardware. You have it, you've bought it as Switch Engine, for example, and now you want to change it to Fabric. This is the document that's going to help you with that. The next document that's available up here, or is actually a video, and that is a 5420 series unboxing. Probably not something that you need to do now that you've already unboxed it, but it's there and it's available for you. The next one is a hardware installation guide, in this case for the 5420. For example, where do I plug the power? What if I have redundant power supplies or redundant fans, etc.? This is the guide that you need. The next one up is the 5420 series quick reference. It could be any of switches that you choose, but just quick reference guide. This is what it does in a few pages, not 2,000 pages like we saw in Exos user guide. This one is quite an important one because if you buy universal switches, remember we said when you boot it up, you have the ability to boot it up into Switch Engine or to boot it up into Fabric. This document over here will show you how to select which operating system you want to run on your switch. This one is a video and it shows you how you would onboard a switch or any device into Extreme Cloud IQ. Short, simple, to the point. Next one is another video, and this one shows you how to do something that we've already spoken about. This is how to select the network operating system, Fabric or Switch Engine, using the command line, the CLI. For network administrators who love the command line, this video is going to show you how to select the network operating system, Fabric or Switch Engine via your preferred tool. There are many ways to onboard this device. You can onboard it into Extreme Cloud IQ. You can onboard it using Extreme Management Center. This video will take you through the latter of those, onboarding using Extreme Management Center. And finally, if you do use Extreme Cloud IQ, then this video is going to show you how to onboard your device using Extreme Cloud IQ or alternatively CLI as well. So in summary, 7 tools to help you to get from the unboxing process to the onboarding process in Extreme Cloud IQ or into Fabric, wherever your choice of operating system takes you. Everything we've spoken about until now regarding documentation, regarding getting to know your switch, has been pretty much static. It's information that's there, that's been created for you to go and read over and over, use as reference material, there to guide you, to help you, videos, etc. But we have more than that at Extreme Networks. We've got something we call a community, which you can find on, you guessed it, community.extremenetworks.com. And it's a really fantastic place. You have to register, and you would do that on the top right of extremenetworks.com webpage. If you already have an account, you just log in. Otherwise, just go in and register. It's free of charge. And at the community, you will find a community of fans, a community of people who love Extreme products, who know Extreme products really well. And if you have a question that you haven't been able to find the answer to in your documentation, for example, you can go there and chances are that somebody has already asked the question once, twice, or some questions hundreds of times. So use the search feature within community to go and search for what you want. You've got an ability to filter by product, etc., etc. So there's an enormous amount of activity on there. People really are active. It's not like you ask a question and no one answers for 6 weeks. It's not like that. It's a very active community, and let me say, a very knowledgeable community as well. There's member resources on there where you can go and look at product announcements, the latest product updates. I suggest that if you're into Extreme, if you're buying Extreme technology, if you're using Extreme technology, this should be a site that you visit every single day. Just leave it open in your browser tab, because you will find that there's such a friendly bunch of engineers. Build a community with others, get to know others, make friends on here, and the answers that you look in will appear really, really quickly. GitHub. Why would you go to GitHub? Well, GitHub is a repository where you can get updates, you can get code, you can get script. Developers are really aware of these updates. Of course, firmware updates, all of that you would find on this particular repository. A very valuable tool. How would you get to GitHub? github.com/Extreme Networks. Easy to find. That's the repository for all code, all updates, everything that you need to do, including scripts. If none of the methods work for you, if you have a technical problem that you haven't been able to solve through the community or by reading the documentation, or there is perhaps a hardware fault with your device, we have a solution for that as well. We call it GTAC, Global Technical Assistance Center. We have them around the world, and we actually publish phone numbers for all of these places where you can go in and call, speak to somebody, but the preferred way is to open a ticket. The way you get to that is extremenetworks.com/support/contact. The URL is up on your screen, and you can scan this QR code as well. Go to this page, register for an Extreme Networks account if you don't have one, and there you can go and open a ticket. The importance of that is that ticket can be tracked, and we can go back and use that information to update our knowledge set as well. But that is our preferred way to get you the technical support that you need if nothing else can help you. If you're already a customer with Extreme Networks, or maybe you've done some sort of a certification with Extreme Networks, then you would already be quite familiar with the dojo, dojo.extremenetworks.com. And that is an important repository. That's an important location as well for you, because there you can watch a lot of videos that we put out for all sorts of things around our entire product set. It's also the place for training. You can learn all about training, and it's probably going to be the place that you're going to go to if you want to certify on this Welcome series, on Extreme Switching. You'd go to the dojo and go and take the exam over there. So it's our platform for exams, it's our platform for knowledge. That's where you would go. You have to create an account on extremenetworks.com, but it's free. So feel free to use these resources. I know that we've covered a lot of information in this episode regarding documentation or help with your switch. It is vast, but it is tailored for different things at different times of your life cycle with the products that we own. From the user guides, from the reference guides, from how to onboard videos, there really is a wealth of knowledge available to you when you buy one of our products. GTAC has a world-class reputation as being a fantastic resource for people to speak to somebody, to log a ticket and get someone active on that. So make use of them. All of this material I've told you about is free. Just go sign up, have an account. It's there. It's for you to help you to get the best out of the tools that we make. So to summarize, we have a huge amount of resources to help you as a customer to get familiar with our products. Get familiar with these. The more information you absorb about the products, the closer you get to our products, the more intimate you get in understanding how our products work, what they're capable of, the more you will get out of your investment. Instead of just using the devices for one or two things, you might realize that you can do so much more. And the documentation tells you all of this. The documentation helps you to get to that point. Let's talk about security, integrated security. Now, proper security is an end-to-end approach. It includes hardware, of course, because that's what we're talking about, but also the humans that use that hardware. They are equally important to maintain a secure network, and for that, they need to be educated. But for their part, network administrators, they need to make sure that every single device, hardware device under their control is as secure as possible. And at Extreme, we use an open, standards-based approach to allow network access control, NAC, on all edge ports of a network by using authentication. Now, this means users and devices can move or roam seamlessly across the net in a completely secure manner. Not only does Extreme Exos or Switch Engine Network Login provide support for simultaneous authentication methods, but it also supports multiple concurrent authentication techniques, such as IEEE 802.1x, MAC-based authentication, and web-based methods. It even allows for multiple user authentication, which means that multiple users and devices can be connected to the same physical port running a VLAN. That's powerful. Role-based policy, when used in conjunction with a tool that we sell called Extreme Control, will allow a network administrator to define distinct roles and policies or profiles that represent standard types of users that you'd find in different industries. Think maybe the educational sector or normal enterprise business, right? You're going to have roles like administrator, teacher, guest, for example, and all of those roles can be assigned to individual users. And you can even create your own profiles, your own roles. And those profiles then apply to users as they move or roam across your entire network, again, on a wired or a wireless network. Let's talk about MAC security. So this is the ability to lock down a port to a specific MAC address or amount of addresses. In practice, you could use it to lock down a port to the main office printer, for example, so that no one could unplug a network cable from it and plug in another laptop or whatever it might be. Think of the hospitality industry, for example, where somebody could unplug the Ethernet cable from the back of a television and plug it into some sort of a sniffing device to be able to build knowledge of a network. If MAC security was enabled on that port, it would essentially become a dead port and ignore all of the traffic. IP security framework allows for the protection of critical infrastructure, critical services, for example, like DHCP and DNS, and host computers from spoofing and man-in-the-middle attack. It also protects the network from statically configured and or spoofed IP addresses by building an externally trusted database of MAC, IP, and port bindings, providing the traffic source with a specific address for immediate defense. So what does all of this stuff actually mean? Well, if you have a user on a network that has the ability and the knowledge to be able to change a MAC address of a machine, then this trusted database that I've mentioned, it has already built up an ID for that machine. And going in and overwriting the MAC address will trigger the defense mechanism to stop that and block that machine from further access into the network. A denial of service attack launched against a switch would have the purpose of taking that switch out of commission, knocking that part of your network out. CPU DOS protection or denial of service protection throttles traffic directed to the switch and then can automatically set an access control list for defense, which then protects the switch from the effects of this DOS attack, from the denial of service attack, such as ping of death, for example, and various others. This defense mechanism works for all CPU-bound traffic, layer 2, IPv4, and IPv6. An access control list is simply a list of IP addresses or MAC addresses that are allowed to access a particular resource. One of the great features of Extreme Networks is when you marry the software components, the software tools, to the hardware devices. When you do this with role-based policy, you have a whole lot more options to manage and secure your network than if you didn't use policy. And policy can be very powerful for your network because we can apply policy to do things like when we detect a new user in our reception, we can put them immediately onto a guest VLAN. But let's say that user is somebody, a contractor, for example, that comes into work 2 or 3 times a week, and they need to work with a particular team within our company. We identify them, put them on the guest network, and we don't allow them to go anywhere else until they authenticate. Once they've authenticated, the role-based policy can say, okay, at this point, I'm now going to move you over into VLAN 200, for example, where they can get access to resources that a contractor like them has access to, or that you've set for them to have access to. They are not able to see any other part of the network. They're not able to access any other part of the network. And so this role-based policy is a layer, another layer on top of the physical, on top of the hardware, that provides a network administrator with so many more tools that they can apply, not only to users, to teams, but to devices as well. Again, right across your network, from wired to wireless, from campus to campus. Role-based policies add an extra level of security right across your network. Is this a comprehensive list of features, of security features on Exos Switch Engine? No, it's not. There's a lot more. But this course is designed to make you aware of the functionality. Extreme Networks take security seriously. Security for us is not an afterthought that gets slapped on just to make sure that we can tick a box. Security for us is built in, is baked into the product from the ground up. So it's in the hardware, it's in the physical devices. It's also on the layers above that, on the management, on the tools like Extreme Control. It's end-to-end security. We've covered an enormous amount in this episode, most of it to do with documentation, support. All of these things are really important. We then touched on security, the security aspects of Exos and the security aspects of our switches. And there was a lot of interesting topics in that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We have a lot more coming up in episode 3. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching.